I don't know about you, but I have a love-hate relationship with my phone. I find that it is a modern day necessity nowadays. It's given me the gift of navigation, without which I would be completely lost. I would say that I have no experience reading a physical map. Even a digital map is a little hard for me. I find left and right to be, I know my left and my right. Okay, let's just get that straight. I know my left and my right, but I have to think about it a little, okay? I'm going left, I'm going right. North, I think, is wherever I am facing. If I'm facing here, north is here. In the early 2000s, nobody would ever volunteer my directional services. Nobody would ever go like, Teresa will navigate us somewhere. Prior to getting a smartphone, and I was a late adopter to even having a smartphone. My first iPhone I got in 2014. I would just not go anywhere. Like, I literally would only drive to places that I know by heart, and that's not many places. My world was very small. On the one hand, it has given me the gift of GPS. I guess normal people would say it's connected them to their friends and their family. You can talk to your friends and family, coworkers, every single day. I would say that's okay. I don't need to talk to some people every single day. You can chit-chat now on the phone, FaceTime, chit chat. But one thing that I heartily dislike about it is kind of a time suck. It has wasted many hours, weeks, months, maybe years of my life just staring at a screen. It's a beautiful world out there. It's a beautiful world. How many times have I missed the opportunity to stop and smell the roses because I was aimlessly scrolling Instagram, or I was mindlessly checking how many book sales I had? Like, did it change within the past 5 minutes? Or I was mindlessly checking my email. I wasn't even reading it, just checking to see what kind of junk came in. So in that sense, I don't like being that connected. So with almost 17 years of the iPhone being in our lives, a decade plus, with a smartphone, perhaps you are feeling how I'm feeling, a collective ennui of digital life. So recently I read an article that dumb phones are making a comeback. Dumb phones, the flip phones of the early 2000s, phones not connected to the internet are having a moment with Gen Z and with millennials, out of nostalgia, out of just being sick of being connected all the time, of having constant notifications bombarding you, of just mindless brain suck scrolling, of just being on the screen every second of your life. So that's what we're going to talk about today. My name's Teresa, and this is the rise of dumb technology and vintage technology nostalgia. On this channel, we like to talk about trends throughout history and fashion, trends happening right now, modern day trends. Dumb technology is making a comeback, like dumb phones are having its moment. Though I would say this interest in vintage technology, this analog nostalgia, has been recurring since the early 2010s. I believe it started with records, with Polaroid cameras. Have one over there, the Polaroid One Step. I used to have a vintage typewriter over here. I've removed it. I'm not going to drag it back out right now because I'm actually using it. I spent 2 weeks restoring it myself. Extensive YouTube tutorial watching on how to take apart, degunk, and re-oil an Olivetti Literata 32. I think I'm saying it right. Literata 32. I currently wrote the last half of chapter 3 of my Christmas rom-com on it, and it was not easy. I think I might have to rewrite it again. I've scanned the pages. There's a ton of typos and errors in it. I never realized that on a computer, I make so many mistakes that I then delete or Control Z without even thinking about it, because on a typewriter, you can't Control Z. Sometimes when I go through life, I kind of want to just Control Z some of the mistakes I've made, but I can't. You can't press Control Z to life. Right now, we are in a 2000s nostalgic tech era. The comeback of digital cameras, of flip phones, or just dumb phones. Last year, I read an article that the iPod Nano, first to third generation iPods, were also making a comeback. So I guess this just goes to show that maybe you should just keep everything. Just start hoarding. Just start keeping everything that ever came into your possession, because you never know when it will become cool again. Then maybe if you don't have any sentimental attachment to it, maybe you should just sell it on eBay and make a tidy profit. Now, I have been reading over a variety of articles that dumb phones are making a comeback or having a moment, are especially popular with Gen Z and millennials, because we have all this nostalgia for it from when we used it when we were younger. In my world, I have not seen this in practice, though. Everybody still has their iPhones, their Androids. I haven't seen anybody, whip out a flip phone yet. I'm assuming you carry your smartphone and then you carry your flip phone, and your flip phone will be kind of like your novelty item, like a fun thing to do. Depending on where you live, it's very difficult to get through life, modern life right now, without a smartphone. Like maybe you could get away with it if you live in the sticks somewhere, or you live in the country, someplace that still takes cash, or maybe just card. Living in the suburb of a big city, I find life to be extremely hard to get through without a smartphone. After the pandemic, a lot of restaurants have suddenly turned into digital-only menus, like QR code. You have to scan the QR code to get the menu. Everything is basically contactless payments, not to mention two-factor authentication. That would make things very difficult. How are you going to do two-factor authentication with a dumb phone? You're going to accept every single robocall. If you live in the city, a lot of the public transportation, I'm seeing that they're phasing out cash. Like my apartment complex, like the laundry room, like you can't do your laundry without downloading an app. Like everything requires an app. If you want to order takeout, a lot of restaurants now have their own app. Like there's an app for everything, which I find really annoying. On my phone, I like to run a tight ship. I don't like to have more apps than I need. So I find that you can use a dumb phone. You can make it work. Life is just going to be so much more difficult for you because everybody else is still on their smartphone and everything is progressing to everything being digital. In many ways, that's very efficient, but in many ways, that kind of sucks. I'm an elder millennial, a geriatric millennial, as I'm fond of saying on this channel, as I say a lot on this channel. And I feel that this special age group of millennials, the elder millennials, born in the 80s, we kind of lived the best of both worlds. We grew up without the internet and then with the internet. Like we remember when the internet became a thing. We grew up in a very unique situation in that most of us, I would say, remembers a time before the internet, before smartphones, before computers. A lot of us may not have even grown up with a computer in our home. Like for instance, I didn't grow up with a computer in my home until I was in 8th grade. Like 8th grade, 13 years old was when I got my first computer, and it didn't have the internet. I wasn't even connected to the internet. I didn't get AOL until I was in 11th grade. Actually, the summer before 12th grade, senior year. Like I didn't get on the internet until 2001. But even though I didn't have internet connection in my home, we were like late adopters in my home. I would go on my cousin's computer. I would go to the computer lab. Like I already knew how to do it, even though I didn't have it. But for a lot of my childhood, I wasn't connected to the internet at all. There was no social media. There was no internet. If a friend wanted to talk to you, they would call you up on the phone and hope that you would be there, and vice versa. It was a very unique childhood, the days before the internet. And as I'm saying that, I feel super ancient. I did not have a computer until 1998, and I did not have the internet until 2001. I got my first cell phone in 2002 when I went to college. It's like a T-Mobile brick phone and did the basics, which is basically call people. What I would use it for is to call my dorm mates. Are you ready to go down to dinner? That's it. There was no texting plan. I don't think I had very long, intensive phone conversations with anybody on my first phone. So I remember the days without being very, very connected. And I would say that overall, I was happier. And this is me looking at it through the rose-colored lenses of nostalgia. Because obviously, in real life, I was probably grumbling, wishing that I had the internet. Funny trivia is that I somehow have managed to miss the popular, the good, hated Windows operating system. Like, I never had Windows 95. My first computer contained Windows 98, a far inferior product to Windows 95. And then I never had Windows XP. Like, I never had Bliss as my desktop, guys. I never had Autumn. I never had Bliss. After the Windows 98 computer, I had a giant desktop, and it contained Windows Me. I have somehow missed all the iconic Windows operating systems, and I have only had the far inferior product of Windows operating system. I have a craft basket of old tech, Motorola. Okay, I can't say Motorola. This is the Motorola Razr flip phone, which I love. I love flipping this open. I feel so important, like I'm some kind of stockbroker. I feel like I'm some kind of C-suite executive from the early 2000s. Where are those TSP reports? Where are those TPS reports? This Sony Ericsson, see the slide. I love these motions, these tactile motions of the sliding. Hello? Hi. This is my phone from 2007 to 2014. I was a late adopter on the smartphone game. My first smartphone was an iPhone 6. It was the Bend-Gate phone. Remember it bend if you put it in your back pocket? But this bad boy I had for the better part of my 20s. It has a 2.0 megapixel camera, which is good because, you didn't want your picture to be that crispy back then. I had really bad acne in my 20s, so I appreciated a blurry photo. It's also a Walkman, so you could play music. I probably downloaded some music in here. Flip it around like this. It's also a little camera. I love this thing. I love the clickiness of the buttons. One thing that I didn't realize I missed until now is buttons. I miss pressing buttons. I miss the tactile feeling of flipping things open. I could do this all day long. This is actually a really good fidget toy. Kind of off topic, but I have really bad ADHD. So bad that I could be doing yoga. I'm on the ground planking, for instance, or doing some push-ups or something. Oh, I need to go water the plants. And I water the plants and I'll jump to the computer and start working on my book, go back, do yoga for 5 minutes and decide I need to go wash the dishes. It would probably take me 40 minutes to an hour to do a 20-minute yoga section because I can't concentrate. So that's how bad my ADHD was. And I remember that when I used to have this phone for the better part of the 2000s and 2010s, my ADHD was a little bit more under control. Maybe I didn't even have any ADHD at that time because I was not connected to the internet. So during the 7 years or so that I used this as my phone, I did not have a texting plan. Okay, that's how late of an adopter I was. And it was one part a cost-cutting measure. My family had this very bare bones, basic phone plan. It's just calls. That's it. Calls. Also, I didn't want anybody to text me. I have a negative association with text. Anytime anybody texted me, it wasn't hey, Teresa, how you doing? Just want to talk. No. Anytime somebody would text me, it would be for work. Teresa, I can't come in today. I'm sick. You're going to be working that shift alone, just by yourself. Customer service, all alone during the busiest shift. And this coworker of mine just kept sending a barrage of texts on this phone, and it was going to cost me 20 cents a word. I texted back, and I'm like, stop texting me. Stop texting me. I get it. So I have a negative association with texting, a Pavlov's dog association, in that I equate texting with punishment. And I also equate phone calls with perverts. It's because when I was in third grade, when I was 8 years old, for the length of a month or so, there was this pervert that just kept calling our home line. Back in the 90s, I answered the phone. We didn't have a voicemail machine. So I would just answer the phone. And this guy, oh God, this guy should have been in prison. He said the nastiest, freakiest, most degenerate things to me when I was 8 years old. And he would call 3 times a week at 3:30 p.m. It was literally that first opening scene from Scream. He had a perverted voice. hey, little girl. I got, like bad pervert vibes. So I would hang up on him right away. A day later, he would call back again. I felt like he was stalking me. And I think at some point he told me that he was watching me. And I remember writing an essay in 3rd grade. Like I had this teacher, she didn't really care for me, but I wrote this essay about how this guy was kind of like stalking me over the phone. I wrote, I cannot live like this anymore. She didn't believe me. She's like, is this true? And I'm like, yeah, it's true. And you're like, you make up such tall tales. If I wasn't 8 years old and I'd known better, like I should have told my parents, because this guy should have been in prison. I think it might have been a prank call. That was a thing that people did in the 90s, like a lot of prank calls. But at the same time, he sounded like a grown man. Even if this was a prank, he was literally being very disgusting to an 8-year-old girl. And that is why I have a negative association with the phone. When I hear the phone ring, I just freeze up. I can't answer the phone. I mean, sometimes there's important calls and I'll call them back. I'll call you back. You can go to voicemail, because I'm not making that mistake again, picking up the phone and getting like a pervert on the phone, breathing all hard. You're watching this and you know me, and if like I've ignored your call and you're like, God, it's so hard to get a hold of you, Teresa. It's because, when I was 8 years old, a pervert called me for a month. I wish I could track him down. I want vengeance. I want vengeance is what I want. So that's a long story to say that I don't answer the phone, and I have very negative associations with the phone ringing and with texting. So basically what I'm saying is I'm antisocial all around. I also have a very sensitive perv detector. I can look at somebody and I'll be like, perv face. That's it. Perv face. Block. During the period when I used this phone, and I'm looking back through the rose-colored lens of nostalgia, I would say I was like 10% more happier when I was on social media, and that involved Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Pinterest. I didn't have Instagram at the time. I could just shut it off. Just shut the laptop, and it was done. And the only time this phone gave me anxiety was when I saw the work caller ID number. I'm like, oh no, what's going on? Who's calling in sick next? Or did I have to explain myself with how I handled this dumpster fire of a situation? I put out a lot of dumpster fires in the past, putting out this dumpster fire versus that dumpster fire of a situation. So I was a lot more happier, and I just felt like the world was a little quieter. I had a lot of time to read. I read a lot now, but I had a lot of time to like just really be invested in reading. And I liked the fact that when you don't want to talk to anybody anymore on social media, you just shut it off and then you just go outside. I sat on a rusted metal folding chair and I just wrote my book outside. And it was great. It was spectacular. So when I got my first iPhone, I don't have it now, I automatically got on all the social media that I could, mostly Instagram. What's my screen time? So this week was an abnormality because a few nights ago, I forgot to shut off my phone. I was on Instagram and Instagram just kept running for about 4 hours and 14 minutes. So it said my total screen time for the week was up 162%. Total screen time was about 5 hours and 31 minutes, but this is an abnormality. I would say on average over a week, I probably average about an hour to 2 hours of screen time, which is actually very low compared to your heavy phone user. So one thing I've noticed is that when I go out to a restaurant, I can guarantee there's always two people sitting across from each other and they're both on their phones. They could be two friends catching up, or maybe they're on a date. Maybe they're siblings. They spend their entire dining experience in silence, both glued to their phone. And whenever I see anybody walking their dog, everybody's on their phone, glued to their phone. Obviously on the subway or on public transit, everybody's glued to their phone. That's like the new norm because you might accidentally catch somebody's eye, your eye, and some strange man's eye may meet. Like what happened to me. Because this guy, he caught my eye and I caught his eye. Our eyes met, and then he decided to move and sit behind me, and he started cussing me out. He thought he was having an argument with me in his head. He called me the B word. He also called me the word that rhymes with runt. I don't know what I said to him in his head to deserve that name, but there we go. So this is what happens when you meet somebody's eye. When people are waiting in line, I like watching people in line. I can't believe I'm admitting this, but sometimes I look over and I see what they're doing on their phone. You don't know who's looking over at you when you're on your phone, and usually that person is me. Fortunately, I'm short, so if you're tall, I probably can't see it. I glance, just a 5-second glance. I'm not being invasive. I'm not like memorizing your keystrokes or anything. A lot of the times people just have their home screen on and they're not doing anything. Like a lot of the times they're just staring at their phone because it's become socially acceptable, especially when you're in public, to stare at your phone, because I think that they don't want to be caught making eye contact with other people, or maybe it's just become the norm or more socially acceptable to be on your phone than it is to just sit there and watch, especially on the subway or especially in any form of public transportation. If you just sit there without staring at something, sit there staring straight ahead, you may be deemed weird. So I guess that's me, because I'm always just sitting there watching people. I observe what they wear and I observe what they do. And sometimes, if given the opportunity, if the person's sitting next to me or if I'm like standing next to somebody, if given the opportunity, I would take a peek at what you are doing on your phone. This was mine. How extraordinary. But it looks exactly like it did the day I got it. I wonder if it still works. You hear that? I did duck lips. I don't mind it. What if I just do a Dutch angle? Ow! The image has changed a little bit. If you are not on the Y2K digital camera trend, you may be wondering, Teresa, why on earth this old digital camera to take photos with when you have your phone, which gives a sharper, crisper image? This one will take a photo with 12.1 megapixels. I also have this beast right here, which is my husband's digital camera that he took with him. He stuffed them into the cargo pockets of his big old cargo pants in the early 2000s when we were both students at UCLA. That's why I resurrect this. And I think it's because for me, and maybe for a lot of people who are interested in this, number one, nostalgia, but number two, I like the look of crappy photos. It was like the photos that one's mom would take in the 90s, or in this case, the early 2000s, the 2010s. Someone would just snap a photo. It may not be the best photo. It may not have great composition. It may not have great lighting. There might be a flash that comes on automatically. The date that appears on the bottom may be wrong. Somebody's finger photobombing the photo. Everything's crooked. Things may be a little blurry, but in its messiness, it's real. And I kind of miss that. And nowadays with Instagram especially, we're kind of trained to take the perfect photo, edit them, bump up the saturation, add a filter if you want. Perfect aesthetic, kind of looks like a professional did it. And I want to see some amateur photography. Just carting this around, I have taken a photo of blah things I eat throughout the day. I've taken some really rough selfies. And this camera really gives you that early 2000s or early 2010s indie sleaze look. This is the camera that you would take to the club and take photos of your friends. Not that I ever went to the club, but you know what I'm talking about. The indie sleaze, high flash photography. This is it. Captures the roughness, the messiness of everyday life. Like for instance, right now, ooh, that's a very pretty photo. Beautiful. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you've enjoyed me, consider subscribing to my channel. I'd love to have you. And as always, I'll see ya next time. Okay, smile for the camera, guys. If you could just move over here. Move over here. And then smile. Okay. Oh, that's pretty.